Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is David Beeson. I am your host for today's conversation. And my guest today is Andy Weinstein, the CEO of Godot Services. Um, we're going to be talking about his business, journey to business ownership, challenges, best practices, and share a peek of what it's really like to build and operate a business. Andy, welcome to the show and thank you for being here today. I would love for you to give us a little bit of background of who you are and tell us a little bit about your business as well.
Hi, thank you, David, for having me. My background is I'm a third generation Pepsi bottler. Uh, First of all, my name is Andy Weinstein. As a third generation Pepsi bottler, I grew up selling sugar water in plastic containers, and I accidentally, through that process, started to learn about whole parts of the supply chain that got me into large scale waste to energy. So, what Godot does is we're converting large agriculture and industrial waste into hydrogen and food grade CO2. So in Wenatchee, we're going to start by processing the excess apples and the bad apples, turn them into hydrogen, and then the carbonation. So I get from a Pepsi franchise perspective, I can create the fuel and the fizz for my business using the local waste streams. So it's a beautiful circular economy, and I totally got here by accident.
Well, with you saying you got there by accident, if you don't mind elaborating a little bit, what was the accident? How'd you end up there?
Yeah, so it kind of started through a series of just serendipitous events. So first one is I came back in the family business in 2013 and I noticed that we had floor to ceiling chemicals in the building and I was like, oh, did not know that. And so then I ended up taking those products and created its own division and expanding that. What I started to realize is wherever you need to go drink, you're most likely going to go to a bathroom, and there's probably also a kitchen. So we could focus on selling to the bathroom and to the kitchen since those were commonalities of our customers. Um, that took off really quickly, and I became kind of market share leader within a few years. And I ended up helping other Pepsi and Dr. Pepper bottlers expand into that business. So in 2017, I went out on my own and I started helping diversify Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, and Coors distributors across the United States to essentially sell toilet paper on their Pepsi trucks, right? And so that was part of the accident. Um, when COVID hit, I realized that I had a privileged relationship with different PPE suppliers. And so what I ended up doing was pivoting to helping small and medium hospitals get their PPE. And in the process, I learned about what was breaking the global supply chain related to COVID. That triggered a series of events that got me able to present both uh, in front of a group of people about how to automate the global supply chain. And then that led to another presentation about um, how do we use the backhaul capacity of beverage trucks to collect waste streams. So this is like recycled plastics, etc. Um, as I kind of went through this journey, every time I did a learning, I ended up pivoting because I had no trench experience in the space. I allowed me to pivot multiple times, and I realized through kind of one random action over the next that I can take the local waste streams and convert them into value that I would need as a Pepsi bottler. And I realized that that is a model that is copy and pastable around the globe, where I know a lot of the other Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, and bottlers. So it's just like a series of just random events from different presentations led to conversations that led to different pivots. And when you're willing to take a pivot, you're willing to learn new things. And I think that's one of the biggest things about being an entrepreneur is uh, being able to listen and learn.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. So, generally speaking, kind of just setting the stage for the audience and the listeners about your company. What does the current ownership structure look like? Are you sole owner and founder? Do you have a business partner? Is there outside investors?
Yeah, so I am currently an 100% owner, but that's because we have investors via safes. So once we finish this round of raising capital, they will have equity, and then I will have a kind of diverse ownership pool. Um, we are kind of a ragtag group of essentially people with senior advisor names and interns, because we don't have the capital on hand to fully pay everybody, but that's what happens when you're raising money, is you find a way to make it work. So we have a very broad group of senior advisors who range from um, the former lead of digital transformation at Saudi Aramco to the chief strategy officer, the former chief strategy officer of American Tower. Just a very broad experience at tackling specific things that we have to deal with in our day-to-day business. Because when we think about businesses, we always think about what we're delivering to a customer, but there's so much more to a business, right? There's their HR, there's the finance, there's the supply chain, the procurement, there is operations and sales, distribution, there's all of those things. And what I realize is when you're dealing at scale, and since at Pepsi scale, everything is scale, um, you start to realize you have to collect people who have been uniquely put in that position and understand, you know, what is a tree and what is bark, right? That and what is a forest. And so that's kind of how I built this really impressive team around me to try something really difficult, right? We're taking apples and we're turning it into hydrogen. That is not a direct line. It takes
Yeah.
multiple steps. And luckily, I've been able to create this massive team around me to do just that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, what does your day to day look like in the business right now? What role are you currently playing? How many hats you wearing?
I wear tons of hats. So a lot of my role today is basically putting together materials, building AI agents to handle tasks, so that I have a lot more free time to do other things. So we have been really focused on building a lot of agents and using AI in ways to accelerate what we're doing. And um, essentially, you're adding like invisible bodies to your team, right? Um, so I think a lot of that has been
Yeah.
occupying my time is setting up those agents. And then the next step is really expanding and hiring a team. Um, but for the next few weeks, months, or as long as it takes, it's fundraising. So that is cold calling or reaching out to specific people, trying to organize meetings. You know, fundraising is relationship building, and that's kind of what I'm dedicating a lot of my time to do.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. So as you look back on your journey so far, what has been the most memorable roadblock or hurdle that you were challenged with that you had to overcome as a business owner?
Well, I think COVID is a very easy roadblock, right? Like everybody experienced their day to day change, no matter what business you're in, right? We stopped going out, we start moving. For me, I was launching a new distribution center every 3 weeks. And so all of a sudden I hit a wall. And so, like, all of a sudden, when you have that wall, you either sit there and wait till it dissipates, which it was very clear that that was not going to happen.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was pivoting to saying, okay, let me help with PPE and send out the things that are in need today. And then from there, being able to then pivot again and saying, hey, is this growing as fast as I want it to be? Where are the things that I can control and where are the things that other people have to operate on? And if I can't control that and I can't push them to do those things, then I have to do something different. And so for me, a big moment was actually the pivot and saying, okay, I'm going to stop this diversification of Pepsi and Dr. Pepper distributors, and I'm going to pivot 100% to uh, turning waste into value. And that
Yeah.
just that was a big wall, because that required me to kind of learn all of these different subjects that truthfully I was terrible at in high school, right? I didn't do it in college. I didn't study chemistry. I don't know anything about chemistry. So I had to do, let's say YouTube crash course. Um, as AI was coming out, I was pretty early on just because of my exposure with my network. And so I started to learn about how to build tools and put things together and basically understand my limits. But I'm not a computer science engineer. I don't know how to code. So these vibe coding tools were like really useful. And then they were also showing you where they failed. Um, and so it's a lot about learning, and it's the biggest walls are the ones that we put in front of ourselves that pretend don't exist. So we and I say like by putting in front of ourselves is like we want to do what we originally said, but what we originally said had a different context window. Now we have to adjust to that context, and I think that's the biggest thing. For me, it was switching from selling toilet paper on Pepsi trucks to then collecting waste streams and then knowing what to do with those waste streams. That was a huge window, but it required kind of a major mental lift that most people don't want to go through, especially in
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, pivoting is huge. Sometimes if you don't pivot at the right time, could mean disaster. I mean, I've seen it time and time again from even people that like I know personally that were owning businesses where they didn't pivot and they stayed in one spot and then slowly just trickled down. So,
Yeah, well,
um,
one of the best examples of a pivot is some. Do you know the app Bourbon?
the app bourbon, no.
Yeah, nobody does. The app Bourbon had a small piece where you can share pictures. They
Mm.
changed their name to Instagram,
Ah,
and they cut all of the other features to only be the shared picture one feature. Now we
yeah,
know it as one of the fastest purchases of all time, right?
yeah,
That is an example of a good pivot. They realized the feedback that all of these added features were unnecessary. Everybody wanted one. And the other thing is the name bourbon disappeared.
yeah.
Nobody knew you were spelling it without an O at the end of the bourbon, but Instagram, we all know. And so I
Yeah.
think taking risk and doing pivots is really where you win.
Where you went. Yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm curious, what makes your business unique? How do you guys stand out against the competition?
Yeah. So we are
So we are
leveraging
leveraging
local waste that normally goes to
normally
landfill.
goes to landfill.
It looks like there's an echo. Do you get an echo?
Slightly. It might be on my end.
Okay. But I'll ask the question again and so I can respond so it's less echo. Sorry.
No, you're all good. So um what makes your business unique? How do you guys stand out against the competition?
Yeah. So the way that we're very unique is we are looking to deploy our waste processing on site. And we're focusing on waste producers of a significant amount, 50 tons a day or more. That is the that gives us essentially a large feedstock of homogeneous nature that we can process and build machines. And then because we're taking that feedstock by paying rent, it changes the value proposition from a cost center to a revenue stream for these waste producers. So all of a sudden, their byproducts can be something valuable. The other thing that is very different from our thing is I can connect us with off takers locally everywhere because fundamentally CO2 is in demand everywhere there is a carbonated beverage. So, but we use food grade CO2 in a variety of ways, whether it's cold storage, whether it's for killing male chickens. I know people don't think of this, but like all of the chickens that we get eggs from, all the males are euthanized. The way they do that is CO2. So there's really interesting like you kind of go down these rabbit holes of who is going to be the local user of your offtake. And in the process of learning about all of this new space, I've identified all of kind of local off takers that allow me to know that wherever I build these smaller medium facilities, I can get a off taker locally so that my transportation costs are down. And when you think about sustainability and where a lot of these projects fail, it's because the cost of transportation eats away at the profitability because they're moving low value goods expensively and over large distances. And if I can remove that transportation, all of a sudden I have a huge leg up to anybody in the business.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's one thing that you wish people knew more about your business? This is always kind of a fun question to ask.
I think a lot of times I there is a something that it's really hard to kind of put your finger on of what people should learn about one business over another. But I think the way we should think about businesses is not as one customer and like one output, but multiple inputs and multiple outputs. And then looking at customers and stakeholders in different lenses. And so I think in our business model, it's really interesting to understand um, that our stakeholders are not your traditional setup, right? Your customer is both the person providing you their waste stream, as well as the person buying the outputs of that waste stream. So you essentially are setting yourself up as a two-sided marketplace. One is where is that waste coming from? And then the second, where does that hydrogen, CO2, carbon ash, hydrochar, whatever it may be, modern coal, whatever it may be, go? And so that's the other piece is like you have to be market making because you have to understand the entire local ecosystem to be able to build those solutions. And so I think a big part of it is rechanging the way we look at businesses from single input, single output to kind of integrated pieces of a ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So kind of pivoting a little bit to marketing. I'm always curious what successful businesses are doing. What percentage of your monthly sales typically is invested back into your marketing budget?
So we are pre-revenue at this point. So I can't really say 100% or 0% of zero is the same number. Regarding marketing, we focus purely on doing our podcast, which is What Are You Waiting For? It's a podcast by Godot, where I bring on people in the space that we touch. So whether it is on the political sphere of how do we negotiate that, or in hydrogen production, um, we talk on that podcast. So that's part of our marketing is basically creating a platform of content. The other piece is really building up these agents to kind of go out and help push out the message and essentially bring eyeballs to your page, right? So that's another key piece. Most people, are paying a significant amount. I'm probably paying a couple $100 a month just on agents to do a lot of it.
Yeah. So what approach have you taken to tracking your leads? Do you all have a CRM that you prefer or anything like that?
That is actually something that we are exploring at the moment. We've had multiple CRMs. The problem is getting people to fully engage with them. So we are working on that. I think the difficulty that you have when you're in a business that has pivoted so much is your CRM is now filled with all sorts of range of people, from the gas station in the Sinclair gas station in Utah to the um, you know the CEO of SK Chemicals and Gas. Like there, it's a very broad amount um,
Yeah.
category. So that how do you categorize that and build it is something that we are looking extensively at doing. And then also, how do we tailor messaging to those people so that it it resonates with them, because everybody's approaching our solution from a different perspective, whether it's I'm producing waste or I'm looking for hydrogen.
Gotcha. So I know that you said that you guys have a couple different team members and stuff like that. Currently how big is the team at Godot?
So when you count the senior advisors and interns, we're about 30 people.
30. Gotcha. And how would you describe your leadership style in business? Has it changed over the years?
Dramatically. Um, I would say before I was somebody who led by saying versus doing. And over time, I've gotten much better of saying, "Here, this is actually the line of my knowledge. Like I know what I don't know in many cases, and I also don't know what I don't know. And so I expect my team members to fill in that void, and if I can help them get there, that's my role. So I really see leadership being one of enablement and empowerment. Um, because at the end of the day, I used to think that if I can micromanage everything, I can get it perfect. But then I realized that it was not a very repeatable model. Versus where you let people learn on the job and you give them the tools to be better, they then become better, and you can then can depend on them because they are essentially housing that institutional knowledge that you've bestowed on them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm curious, are you ready to transition to a couple rapid fire questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
What is the key to success for you?
Listening.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. What is one piece of advice that you would have for other business owners?
Understand that um, salary and uh, people's the way that you pay people is an investment of their expected return in the future, and it's forward looking. And when you're looking at your sales number, it's backwards looking. And so a lot of people get that backwards. They think of their costs and they're like, my sales won't hit my cost numbers. And I'm like, well, are you investing to grow your sales, or are you investing to reduce your costs? Because that's two different things and two different directions. So understanding kind of what is forward looking and what is backwards looking is really important when you're trying to put all the pieces together.
I've never thought of it like that. That makes a lot of sense. That might be the best piece of advice I've gotten on this show. I'm gonna mentally keep that one in my head because that was a really good answer.
Thank you.
What's a book or podcast you're reading or listening to right now?
So podcasts. I got many. Um, I I like the System 2 podcast by my friend Mate. Totally unrelated to what I'm doing, besides that talks about data and finance. Um, the other books that I recommend is Invisible Women. It's a book that I recommend to every employee to learn about data science and data bias. It's by Caroline Criado Perez. It is an excellent book. Can't recommend it enough. The other books that I'm currently reading here, I can just pull it up. I try to go through a book a week on Audible, so I do a lot of reading.
I try
Right
to do
now
like
I'm
one
reading.
a month, so one a week's crazy.
Yeah, so I do so I'm right now in finishing Recoding America, um, by Jennifer Polka. Um, the other book that I just finished was uh, A World Without Email, which is a very interesting approach. And then Moral Ambition by Rutger Bregman is a great book. So,
Yeah.
as a current book that just got out there, Moral Ambition, it's like, how do you become a leader and also use your opportunity as a leader to think about how do we make this world a better place versus how do I make my world a better place, where you're putting the focus on you. Um, so I think Moral Ambition is a great book as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. So this is kind of a fun question. If you had a little bit of magic dust and you could choose one spot in your business to sprinkle it and everything would be perfect, where would it be and why?
One spot in my business. So with magic dust, so it just expands. It's not, we're not talking to capital, we're just like, how would I do this? My magic dust would be creating a distributed network of these waste to energy or waste to modern coal facilities, so I can focus everywhere and create the distributed network of hydrogen that's bigger and better than the current diesel infrastructure, um, and petroleum based kind of go to market strategy. Because I
Yeah.
think that if you create if you create the environment where it's cheap to make products to serve, like where there's a lot of demand, so there are more people making hydrogen trucks, making hydrogen vehicles because there's the infrastructure, it's much better. We see this, like part of the reason why Tesla is so successful is because they had the charger network that they pushed out versus relying on other parties to do it, and they were much more aggressive. So
Yeah.
I would probably say similar approach, but instead of with electric chargers, with hydrogen dispensing and collection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, before we get to the final question of the day, would you like to share with our audience how they can follow you, learn more, contact you guys?
Um, our website is Godot.energy. Feel free to reach out. We have a contact page. Um, Somebody will respond. Um, Follow us on LinkedIn. Follow our podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. It's called What Are You Waiting For? A podcast by Godot. I am the host. We will start recording new sessions probably after the new year. Um, but yeah, feel free to find me and say hi. I'm here in Seattle, pretty local character of sorts. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we've come to the final question of the day, and that is what is most inspiring to you today?
What is most inspiring for me today? I think one of the things that's most inspiring is seeing, as there is a lot of, let's say, turmoil, there are people moving forward. While we see a giant lack of leadership, we are also seeing people trying to fill that void. And it's really inspiring to see a lot of the young kids, let's say the sub 25s that I've been working with, how engaged and knowledgeable they are of both the world around them and also modern technology. Like a lot of our businesses are going to be different because the infrastructure of our businesses are different. Um, and I don't think we're seeing that at the top end, but I see on the bottom end that is really growing quite extensively. And it's really inspiring because we know a lot of solutions are going to come. Um, and we're going to see a lot of businesses disrupted. And that's, for me, I think is actually something promising because right now we essentially have too many big businesses.
Yeah, no, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, well, this was a great conversation, and I really enjoyed getting to hear your story. So thank you for sharing. Also, I just encourage all of you watching to save this show and come back to watch it again because Andy really had some great insights for business. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so that way you get notifications every time a new conversation drops, just like this one. Thanks to everyone who joined us today, and a special thanks to you, Andy, for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, David. And feel free to come and visit us at Godot.energy. Thank you.
Awesome. And I will see you all in the next episode.
See ya.